series is available for £2.50 from Human Rights Guide, P.O. Box 7, London W3 6XJ. Make your cheque payable to BBC Education.
Something like it half. I'm 43. I'll be 44 in December.
I'm 27.
Extraordinary.
As for Miss Eleanor, charming girl. She used to have a child.
When you come to, you'll find you'll be wanting to make love to me desperately.
My parents got in trouble with the FBI for blowing up a napalm laboratory in 1971.
He's interested in producing something of mine.
Your first child.
She loved you. Somebody kills her and you just blow it off.
Just one look, that's all it took. Just one look, that's all it took.
Take a look at Christmas films on BBC2.
Just one look.
Classic Western drama now on BBC2 in tonight's Filmworks, introduced by Robert McKee.
Filmworks. Shame. In 1953, George Stevens Jr. was on summer holiday from college and lending a hand at his father's office, reading in search of possible film projects, when he came across an obscure Western novel by Jack Schaefer called Shame. George Jr. broke the story into sequences and discovered a naturally filmic flow to the narrative, plus the intriguing theme of a world-weary gunfighter seeking a way back into respectable society, only to discover the impossibility of that. He showed his analysis to his father, and George Stevens Sr. was intrigued. Stevens had been directing films for over 20 years, but had never made a true Western. In 1935, he'd done Annie Oakley, but that was history, and there's precious little history in a Western. The West of the Western never existed. Even before film was invented, the dime novelists of the 19th century had already imagined the Old West into a fantasied world fit for yarns depicting acts of great villainy and heroism. In much the same way, the primitive reality of 5th century Britain was remade into a mythical realm for the Arthur legends. In this century, we've done something similar to World War II. With enormous irony, the war and the Holocaust have evolved into a golden age of courage and sacrifice, a time when good and evil were clear and absolute. And so the Western genre, a fabulous age for the telling of allegorical tales that reaffirm traditional values. But George Stevens wanted more than myth. He wanted history, too. He wanted both archetypal symbolism and dirt-real naturalism. To pull these two extremes together, Stevens brought on a specialist in frontier fiction, A.B. Guthrie, Jr. Guthrie understood perfectly that Stevens did not want realism. It's the effort to give historical drama life-as-lived realism that makes it so often so boring. What Stevens wanted was to use the gritty stuff of naturalism to rub the shine off the symbols, so he could give us a feeling of authenticity without diminishing the power of his imagery. For example, Stevens' saloon has no piano, no cliché dance hall girls. In fact, nothing in this film is luxurious or even comfortable. Stevens kept his crew up all night hosing down the streets just to get the right quality of mud. No props were made for this film. Rather, they cannibalized virtually every antique shop within 100 miles. Stevens would not allow the actors' costumes to be referred to as costumes. They were clothing. In fight scenes, actors normally wear padding to help prevent injury when they fall. But Stevens felt that it would show through the Western shirts. So for the famous fist fight in the saloon, Stevens had his crew pad the floor instead. Every morning, Stevens got up at 4:30 to check the nearest weather station so he'd know what to shoot that day, interior or exterior. And that's how he got the magical effect of the clouds and thunder moving over during the murder of Troy. Finally, in post-production, Stevens demanded that the color lab technicians strip that typically glossy Technicolor out of his shots and give everything the dusty, muted quality of nature. With the surface now thoroughly de-romanticized, Stevens could build his myth. This valley, surrounded by the Grand Teton Mountains, cut off from the world, becomes a microcosm of it. The town, every human community in its infancy. The street and saloon, the point where good and evil meet, and yet another of their endless battles since the Archangel Michael cast Lucifer from paradise and drove him down to hell. Here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Stevens has brought them together again. First, Alan Ladd as Shane, the Archangel. He appears as if descending from the heavens, glimpsed through the antlers of a deer. He wears, in fact, the fringed skin of that animal, and throughout the film, Stevens shoots Shane in association with water and green, with living things and nature. Next, Jack Palance as Wilson, the incarnation of Lucifer, slow and serpentine in his movements, black vest, pants, hat, and one black leather glove worn only for moments of murder. Stevens shoots Wilson against the barren rock and the clapboard of the saloon. Shane's buckskin shirt and Wilson's black leather glove are clearly not clothing, as Stevens insisted, but ceremonial attire, worn only when executing the rites of their office. Although these two men know each other through reputation, they apparently have never met prior to the story. Yet notice that when they do, there's an immediate intimacy. Wry smiles of recognition pass between them. These two have met before, many times. Both actors play their highly charged archetypes with quiet voices and calm emotions. The writing keeps them deliberately enigmatic. Asked where he's going, Shane replies, someplace he's never been. Asked what he wants, he answers, nothing. Wilson has only 12 lines of dialogue, but with that, Palance won nomination for Best Supporting Actor. But the stroke of genius that I think makes this film so memorable is Stevens' decision to play as much of the telling as possible from the child's point of view. Stevens had a gift for counterpoint editing and decentering the scene. For example, when the cattle baron and the leader of the farmers' rebellion confront each other, Stevens puts us with Shane and Wilson as they eye each other with suspicious respect. In the big barroom brawl, we watch with Brandon DeWilde's Joey as he cracks his candy cane with each punch. And the effect of angling the film so much from the child's point of view is that it heightens the symbolic clarity of the sides of the conflict, yet gives them a natural explanation. This is how children see things, in absolutes. Shane was one of the last of the lone heroes of the Western. The genre soon evolved into what's known as the professional Western, a kind of metaphor for corporate life, wherein a group of highly skilled men pool their unique talents and come together for a mutual enterprise of great risk. The genre was then finally laughed off the screen by Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles, a brilliant satire that exposed the fascist heart of the Western. For the ultimate myth is that society is weak and needs these lone heroes, and that if we suspend the rule of law and give these heroes the license to use indiscriminate violence, having righted the wrong and gotten the trains to run on time, they'll put down the gun and go off into the sunset. The reality is that once given the power, the hero does not go away, but stays to create the next generation of tyranny. But why worry about that? I don't think Shane's really about good versus evil, society and isolation. I think it's about story and character, about color and music, about image and sound, rhythm and movement, tension and suspense, empathy and antipathy, mood and emotion. I think it's about that pleasure called going to the movies.
If you would like a guide to all the films in this series, featuring production stills and additional information, please send a cheque or postal order for £3, payable to BSS, to Filmworks, P.O. Box 7, London W3 6XJ.